And that's all I have to say about that. That was a terrible impression. I can do a better one. I can. I have it in me. This wasn't that one. Yeah, I'm probably going to pay somebody royalties for that tune just there. That's all I have to say about that. That was a terrible impression. I can do a better one. I can. And I have it in the wrong mic again. This wasn't that one. This is when I do sound checks. Somebody royalties for that tune just there.
All right, check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I was going to do that, but you beat me to it.
Terrible, terrible, I say. Interesting.
That's me scrabbling for the right mic cable. All right, good. Sound check. Check. Alrighty then.
Checkity, check, check, check.
And a check, a check, check, a checkity check.
All right, guys. I need one of you. No, I need to make an appeal to a listener with real bandwidth.
Gee, thanks.
No, Mark. Really? Let me.
Pick me, pick me. Come on, I got bandwidth.
Well, Chris, I'd ask you to do it at your school, but you're not there anymore.
No, I'm not.
So I'll put that up there as a request to the listener. Somebody up there with some tech know-how and some bandwidth to spare. All right. Any questions, comments, snide remarks before we get started?
Turd burglars.
All righty then. Start recording now.
Recording now.
Me too.
Indubitably.
So last week I lost my Skype entirely, and I had to fall back on my backup, which is just me. It's the first time I ever had just me, an effective recording of just myself. And I found it was incredibly difficult. Well, not incredibly. It was credible. I found it more difficult than I expected to line up the tracks.
Oh, really?
Because usually I use Skype as a timing track. I slide you over the file you send me and line it up with the file that I recorded in Skype. But this time Skype or the Audacity had crashed, so I didn't have that. And so I was like, I said something, ladies, my stalwart co-host, yada yada. And then Chris spoke, and I was like, all right, what was approximately how long he waited there? Let me slide that in there. How does that sound? And then we got to Seth. It's like, all right, wait, did he talk over him at any point? So had to line it up, and it was interesting.
Wow.
I mean, it got done, but it just was more than I expected.
It was a little painful, huh?
We need a something that we can all three do on the recording that I can line up.
Oh.
See.
So we could do like a 3, 2. Well, we could do a countdown from 3, 2, 1 at the same time.
You could do that.
That'd get us close.
How about this?
It'd be close.
This will work.
Synchronized belching?
So I'll start counting at a rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then when you think you catch that rhythm, you pick up and count with me. That should account for the delay too. And by the time we get to 10, we ought to be relatively in sync. That make sense?
It'd be an interesting attempt.
Let's see what happens.
So should we restart our recording?
No, that's fine. I'll find it on the recording. All right. 1, 2, 3,
3,
4,
4,
5,
5,
6,
6,
7,
7,
8, 9, 10.
10.
All right. So
Seth, you were way off.
Well, I was hearing both of you way off. So that's
really?
That's the beauty of Skype delay. I mean, that's
Chris, you were off. I was hitting Mark right on.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was that bad.
For me, I was hearing, I'd say 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7. That's the way it sounded to me.
Huh. See, I would hear Mark Chris, Mark Chris, Mark Chris, and I was timing, and I was in really good rhythm with Mark.
Yeah.
So
when I go to line it all up later, if I put everybody in line, it should work. More or less, within a few milliseconds. Okay, let's do a show. Everybody, 1, 2, 3. Let me make a marker. Marker. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 182, Burn-In Wall of Fire, recorded March 1st, 2015, and brought to you by Element OP Productions, elementop.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux Show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather Neves, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, everyone out there in Internet land, and I hope everyone had a great time and day.
You know, Mark, when you said that, I just heard, like, in Johnny Cash voice, I ran into a burning wall of fire. And,
I did too, to tell you the truth.
Well, that was the idea.
I also, my son's been doing the whole burn it with fire, or kill it with fire for the last couple of days, so yeah. I heard that too in my head.
Kill it with fire. So, as promised a couple of weeks back, this is our Firewall show. Not quite the Boris Box episode, but maybe an updating, a follow-up. One of the listeners referred to it as Boris Box 2.0. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we've had a lot of discussion recently, a lot of emails recently about various firewall solutions in the do-it-yourself vein. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we do, I want to tell you that I donated this week in your name for the month of February. I'm sorry, for the month of January. I was just catching up to January because I hadn't done it yet. February, we still need the tickers to settle down. Anyway, for the month of January, I donated in your name to a project called Limbitless. And it's a bit of a cheat. It's not an OS, an open source software thing, but it's open source hardware. Limbitless Solutions does something pretty cool. They put together volunteers that started at a university with a group of students there, and they 3D print artificial limbs for children. And they give them to the children for free. So that's pretty darn cool. When I read this, I was like, I'd never heard of this thing before. So before the show, I went and read it, and I was like, that's pretty darn cool. Yeah. So the problem is artificial limbs are very expensive if you do the traditional route. And children grow so fast that they only get to use one for 6 months at the most. And insurance companies balk at that, and most parents can't pay for it. So this group, the Limbitless group, said, let's make something that isn't as fancy, but is functional, and lets a kid have something that they can use for the 6 months until they outgrow it. And then once their growth stabilizes, they can get a real artificial looking hand. So these hands don't look bionic. They don't look natural. They're not flesh colored or anything. They look like robot hands, but frankly, that's cooler to me. If I was a 6-year-old and I had one of these, I mean, that's the bomb right there. And they are bionic. They are controllable using motion sensors, muscle sensors. So the kids move what they call the residual limb, the stump. They flex an area in the stump, and it makes the hands close or whatever, or twist. So they are fully articulated bionic arms made out of relatively inexpensive plastic materials and 3D printed and given to the kids for free. That's an amazing project. I hope you don't mind that I sort of cheated a little bit and donated in your name to this instead of, say, the Fedora Foundation. I think it's okay. Just for the simple fact that what a cool concept, and if it actually takes hold, and maybe we can actually get bigger companies behind this type of idea. This is a really cool project. I'm really glad to be a part of it. And all their designs are open source. So if you've got a 3D printer, and some time on your hands, you can pick up the torch and start making these on your own. So I love that.
Yeah, anything that you can help somebody out and then yet, maybe pick up the torch in your own area to do it too. That's pretty darn cool.
I mean, this is enough for me to get a 3D printer. This project would inspire me to buy a 3D printer just to do this, because that is super cool. All right, enough about that. Seth, did you make it through Snowpocalypse Mageddon?
Yeah, it was, I mean, in terms of Boston, Northeast, or Canada people, it was no big deal, but I missed 2 days of work. Actually, I got paid to not go into work 2 days and to leave half a day early on Friday, because we had a lot of winter weather, a lot relative to Dallas winter weather, and in the overreaction extraordinaire that the internet has become, I thought the great name of Snowpocalypse again could be the only thing that could possibly do justice to the influx of snow and ice that Dallas suffered.
Yes.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Like I say, it's relative. I know.
I saw one of my favorite Facebook memes recently. It was a picture. Dallas had a blizzard, huh? And it showed a picture of like a half an inch of ice on some lawn furniture. Denver called and said, "How cute," and showed a picture of like 8 feet of snow in Denver. So I thought that was great. It is all relative, though.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
My workplace closed down at noon, and it was everybody go home. But you don't get the day off. You have those fancy security key fobs for a reason. Go home and work. And so, when my work closes down, you don't get the day off. You work remotely.
That's what would happen with me, too, because nothing stops up here.
Right.
Well, It took me, normally if I leave home in normal traffic, it takes me hour and 15 minutes to get home. Well, it took me just under an hour to go the 5 miles to get to the good moving road. So it took me just under 2 hours to get home Friday.
Because everybody was leaving at the same time.
Well, and the roads inside the city were bad. It wasn't until I got out. Of course, I'm going to the least traveled way. So once I got out and got to the actual interstate, the one path out of town that wasn't run over with wrecks was luckily the path I was taking. So once I got up to that, it was good. But driving through downtown, something that takes 10 to 15 minutes took me an hour.
Wow.
The next day, I waited until 7 to go in instead of leaving at 6, just to give a little more time for some sunshine to hit it.
Right.
And it was fine. It was a non-event here, but our schools closed down for 4 days. Just to make sure that everything was safe.
Jesus.
And, I get it as a superintendent. I understand the way they do things here. I don't know about every state. In Texas, pretty much every city had its own school districts, and sometimes multiple within a city. Here, it's by county. So the county I live in, Cherokee County, is massive. It spans 70 miles in one direction. So the far north end of that, almost up into the Blue Ridge Mountains, not Blue Ridge Mountains, the Appalachia. What is the mountains? Anyway, doesn't matter.
Appalachian, yeah.
It's the Appalachian Trail, but I forget the mountain range. Maybe it is.
No, it's the Appalachian Mountains.
Anyway, they may have much more ice than we have down here. I live literally 3 or 4 miles into the county at the southern end, so I'm just barely in the county. So I get that when things are sunny here, they may be bad there, but they have to close school for everybody in the district. So it's a little frustrating. But the district that where my wife works for a school, they again 4 miles away, they had nothing. It was sunshine and roses, and they closed school anyway. And I was like, come on, people, this is really getting a little crazy. And in fact, one of the days, the first day, they didn't close school. They didn't announce schools were closed until 7:15. Well, most days by 7:15, half the kids are already on their way to school, and some are even there already.
Right.
And so at
buses and everything else.
Right. At 7:15, while kids are standing at the bus stop, right, they announced a delay, that it would be 10 o'clock. So imagine you're one of those parents that shows up at 7:45 because you've been in the car for 30 minutes, and they tell you, no, go home and come back in 2 hours. Well, they had enough people mad at that, they just said, never mind, don't come back, school's closed.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I couldn't imagine what that'd be like around here. There'd be pitchforks in people's heads, I think.
Yeah,
wow.
I would have been more than a little upset at that turn of events had my kids been in that school. But as it was, my wife was prepared to go in late, and then she didn't go in at all. So it wasn't a big deal for us because we don't have kids in that school district. She just works there.
Right.
It's a hard thing to be a school superintendent. I don't want that job.
No, nope, I wouldn't want it either, and I definitely am glad I'm currently out of the school districts, if you know what I mean.
And before we go too much farther, a moment of silence for the great Leonard Nimoy, man who had many roles but who will always be remembered as Mr. Spock. He passed this week after a rather lengthy battle with a respiratory condition, we'll call it, at the age of 83. So live long and prosper, Leonard Nimoy.
That's for you. Anyway, yeah, that's...
And so, Chris, you've got some new tech you want to alert us all to.
Well, I don't have it yet, but I'm trying to see if I can get some spousal approval. HTC this weekend released their new flagship for their phones called the M9, which is wonderfully, named considering last year's model was the M8. They're so brilliant there. Which, as far as flagship phones go, it is a flagship phone, just like the M8 was. It's priced the same way. The one thing that kind of got me kind of curious is I've really been getting into trying to get fitness, in workouts and everything else. They also released something called the HTC Grip, which is a fitness tracker that does a little bit more than fitness. And there isn't a whole lot available for it until just today, so I don't have a lot to tell about. But it does have a little bit more than my current band from Polar, which all that one does is step count and approximating your calories burned. This one does a little bit more, where it has a built-in GPS. It can actually tell the difference between if you're doing push-ups or if you're just running. So it's kind of a neat little thing. I don't have a price tag on it yet, but it's one of those things where I'm going to look at it. I'm going to definitely call my little brother who tests these bands for his company, and I'm going to ask him to try this one out to see what it's like. And maybe I can get my hands on one to try it out. So hopefully, cross your fingers that I can test it and let you know soon.
You're all in the HTC bandwagon, aren't you?
I've been very impressed with every HTC device I've ever owned. I've never had a bad one. My current phone, it down the hallway a couple hundred times, and it's still purring like a kitten. So as soon as I get my Lollipop on, I'll be even happier. But right now I can't complain. My phone, battery life for my phone, it's a year old, and it's still pulling 9 hours without being dead.
Well, say goodbye to that if you get Lollipop.
I've heard, but I've also heard that the newer versions of Lollipop that they've been tinkered on are better. But I don't know which version I'll get pushed down from HTC and Verizon. So
5.1, the vaunted 5.1, is supposed to fix all these things. The most egregious thing about Lollipop, at least on the Nexus, but I've heard it's with other platforms as well, is the memory leak. You know how your phone gets laggy when you've got a lot of stuff running. Well, this gets laggy when you don't have a lot of stuff running because it's not freeing up RAM.
Ooh.
And it's two times a day my phone locks up and reboots because it runs out of memory.
Wow, that is pretty rough.
It is.
But maybe that's why HTC hasn't released it, because I know they've been talking. They were supposed to release it by February, but they also said if it wasn't ready, that's not coming out of their gates until it is. So,
yeah, I got the I'm one of the Nexus beta testers apparently.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I also dumped I dumped Android off of my Nexus 7 and went to Cyanogen. So, which it's kind of nice. I like my Cyanogen, and if I don't like Lollipop when it hits my HTC, I'll probably dump it again and break it and put on a Cyanogen on it.
So I have a little bit of new tech. The Raspberry Pi 2 that I ordered finally came in, and I found out the good and bad of being one of the first to buy something. First off, the device itself is pretty dang awesome. Same footprint as the original one, but that's it. Don't expect your cases to work on it, because I foolishly thought that they would, but no, things are totally moved around. They lose the S-video out. That doesn't exist anymore. Who's going to miss that? They added 2 more USB ports, so your USB ports don't line up. The power adapter is on a different side, so your case isn't going to work. So just be prepared. You got to buy a new case, and it requires twice the power. So I had a 1 amp charger on the old one, and this one requires a 2 amp, and it does really require it. You can't expect it to work well on a 1 amp. It'll power up, but that's about it. But
interesting.
Also, once I did that, I found that. By the way, I'm using my iPad charger. It's 2.1 amps and working like a champ. So you probably already have a 2 amp charger laying around. I have
and if not, you can go look and get one. They're pretty cheap nowadays.
Yeah. So I also, because it's a different chipset and a different system, the whole thing, you can't pop an SD card out of a Pi and plug it into a Pi 2. That's not surprising. And when I went to put RaspBMC that I've been using for my media center, I found that RaspBMC does not support Pi 2. I had to move to OSMC, which is the successor to RaspBMC, but it's still in alpha state. So
fun.
Yeah. It's okay. It's working fine, but it's immature. I don't have a lot of the plugins and things that I was accustomed to using. So, I understand if you're a developer, you're killing one project, you want to move to another. It would take a significant amount of work to update your new one to a different hardware set. I understand that from the standpoint of making the developer's life easy. But as a consumer, I'm frustrated by that. And I can't say customer because I didn't pay for it. It's a free thing,
Right.
But as a consumer, it's frustrating that when I bought something with a 600% performance gain, the only way I could realize that was to put alpha software on it.
That kind of hurts. I was hoping that there'd be a little bit better, but
the Plex client does work on it. That was the first thing I tried, and I just didn't like the Plex client. It's just there's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't like it. In terms of the way I like to interact with my stuff. Everything was cover flow, and that annoys me. When there's just one stream, I've got 300 movies, and if I want to watch Wolverine, flashing through the cover flow version, starting at 51st
Numbers.
dates, going all the way through to Wolverine, takes way more time than I'm willing to invest. So after dinking around with it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I looked to see if I could find a way to change the interface, and I couldn't. Maybe it's there. If you're a Plex client fan and you wanted to set the record straight, great. But as it is, I couldn't find anything useful at all. Not useful. Let me rephrase. I couldn't find anything I liked. So I went with the OSMC, and it's fine. It's working great, and it's a lot faster. And my movies don't. I'm now running at 1080p instead of 720p, and it never bogs down at all. So, all in all, worth doing. And I probably will move ahead with the Boris Box Pi based product that we were talking about. I had a good bit of feedback on that. Door to Door Geek, our good friend, recommends that I check out the Pi Banana Pi 2. First, Banana Pi Pro. It's their latest version of the Banana Pi that is supposed to be a better system on a chip than the Raspberry Pi 2. So I'll probably get one of those and check it out. They're more expensive, which, if I'm looking to sell a product at barely break-even prices, more expensive is a problem. But I will get one and check it out. If it's 50% more expensive and 200% better performing, it's probably worth it. I'll just have to see.
Hey, we could have multiple products. You know, we could have the budget Boris box and then the bloated Boris box.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I did have somebody write in and say, how about a NAS box, sans hard drives, just a pre-configured NAS with our logo on it based on a Pi. Not a bad idea. Something I might look into.
There you go.
So I do listen or read.
Or
emails.
both.
So one last thing, I have a plea. I need I mentioned it a couple of shows ago that for some reason I can't get to my own servers anymore. AT&T is blocking my host Monster. I don't know why. It's not at I have done all my due diligence. It is nothing inside my network that is causing it. It's about 3 hops down. It just dies. And they blocked it, and then it came back, and then they blocked it, and then it came back, and now it's been blocked for about 2 weeks. So now, in order to administrate my own servers, I have to go through a public proxy to post this website, podcast every week, or to look at my own forums. So what I'm asking, until I can figure out how to resolve this issue, I'm asking for somebody in the audience who has good bandwidth and technical know-how and would be willing to trust me with a proxy access. If you would set up a proxy server and send me a login to it, I would appreciate it, just so that I could administer my own freaking website. That would be awesome. So if you can do it, great. If not, that's fine. I just thought, I know somebody out there is a network admin for somewhere who can do that, spin it up on a VM and never notice it.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be kind of, yeah. Would you be able to do if you signed up for one of those VPN systems where you're tunneling to a VPN, tunnel out?
I could, but I don't want to pay to fix a problem with my ISP. Plain and simple.
Right.
Until I'm on them to try to fix it. But
right.
I don't want to pay $10 a month to fix their problem. And all the free ones are super, super slow.
Are they?
Like,
I didn't know how bad that is.
You get like 100K bandwidth as the as the trial. Just hey, you see how well it works?
I wish I had 100K bandwidth.
And then some of them don't do SSL, right? Because that's the pro version. Anyway.
Sure.
Right.
I just thought that that's an idea. I know if it comes down to it, that might be something we end up looking into.
Yeah, at this point, I'm only doing it a few times a week, and it's super annoying. And I'm just hoping that somebody in the audience can come to my rescue. If not, I'll continue doing what I'm doing. I can tether through my phone to do basic administration, but I don't want to upload a show that way.
Ooh, that would be painful.
Yeah, well, not only is it slow, but it eats bandwidth. And
right. So unless you're on unlimited, it's not worth it.
Right. So I find some public proxy somewhere and hope they're not sniffing my traffic as it goes through, and do it that way. Okay, moving on to our listener feedback. Listener feedback. Joe has a question about firewalls. How appropriate for this show. He says, hey guys, I know this email is late for tomorrow's podcast recording. Hint, he sent it yesterday.
No, it's not.
But I hope you cover a few of the firewall distros. I tried IPFire, but the web interface had a lot of problems, so as to be unusable. I successfully tried Sophos, and it was a very feature-rich UTM, Unified Threat Management, by the way, is what that means, and probably overkill. I'd like to hear what you guys think of ClearOS. You mentioned overkill and ClearOS in the same sentence.
Yeah,
James. Also, it's also a gateway / UTM. I haven't tried it, but it looks feature-rich like Untangle or Sophos. I ultimately went back to Untangle because it was what I was used to, so easy to set up and configure, and the web GUI is noob-friendly. I was too intimidated to try pfSense, but every podcaster and stranger on the internet that uses it seems to be very happy with it. One more thing I hope you cover, the freemium model. Untango, Sophos, and ClearOS all have free versions for stuff for home users and paid versions for the enterprise. If there's a paid version of a web filter or virus blocker, I assume the free version is either a lesser version or gets updated at a later date. Otherwise, why would people pay for the paid version? What's your opinion on the freemium model? Good or a false sense of security? So let's address those. Chris, any comments on, I know you're a pfSense guy, that isn't a spoiler for later in the show?
No, it's not a spoiler. I've been touting pfSense for a while. The freemium model is actually not too bad of a thing to use. A lot of times, products like Untangle or Sophos, they use the freemium model as their updates come down a little bit later. Usually they have a limiter built into those freemium models, so you can't have as many clients as the paid version. So they watch unique MAC IDs, and they will limit you on how many connections you can have through it. Not all of them are. I know some of the newer versions of Untangle watches the max and will slow down traffic accordingly.
Or also, most of the time what you pay for is something like multiple user, like tying into an LDAP or an AD database. Untangle, I know, has that. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. Go ahead.
Sure. I want to hold on to a couple of the good things about pfSense to talk about it later, but I would definitely go back and try pfSense. Just for the simple fact that the features that you're looking for, such as the UTM stuff, pfSense has in spades, and then you'll be able. The only thing you have to worry about is trying to find all the config files yourself. But there's an option for that too. So anyway, I like the freemium model. pfSense is that particular breed right now because you can pay for it and get support, or you can just do it yourself and not worry about it.
Yeah, I'll just kind of throw in there that a lot of times it's the same engine in the car, but you don't necessarily get to configure it and tweak it as much. Like, for example, Untangle, which we'll be talking about later, there is a web filter version and a web filter lite version. They basically do the same thing, but if you have the one that you pay for, you can like customize whitelist and blacklist, and there's some features like Google did YouTube for Schools that you can allow, and so you get more reporting capabilities, more customization capabilities, and more ways to tinker. They both do the same thing, but the free version is kind of like, here's the services you get, and then the paid version, hey, we're going to let you raise the hood and tinker and switch out the carburetor and the air filter and stuff like that. So you can do more with the freemium, but I would not call it a false sense of security. It's just a way to, you want web filtering, great. Do you want the ability to customize your web filtering? Then that's going to cost extra. So one gives you everything you need. The paid version allows you to configure it more to the exact thing you're looking for.
Generally speaking, I've used 3 or 4 different of the freemium models. The free one is fine for a small office or home. Without, I feel strongly confident in being able to say that. The free version is fine for home use or even a small office. The reason the premium version is there is because when you step up in size and in complexity, you need more capability.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a pretty blanket way of saying it. And the nice thing is no matter what freemium model or paid model you end up going with, the baseline security is all the same.
Right.
So, even if you're, and that's the only difference between any of these things, technically, is all the extra bells and whistles do you get, because everyone is based on a similar baseline of security. So you just need to know where you're comfortable at. Do you want more GUI or do you want less GUI? Do you want what level of things can you deal with? And we'll cover some of that later on today.
All right. And next up, Heinrich. I don't know if that's how he says his name or not, but that's how I'm saying it. He says, hey, the thorough Swede here. My girlfriend loved that description. But don't worry, this will be a fairly short one. I think it wise to mention that to the listeners that a home router usually doesn't allow normal DMZ, as in how Mark explained it, but it does allow picking an IP to be the DMZ host. Better not confuse the two. configured correctly, a DMZ host could be really dangerous, as all traffic not explicitly sent to another service on the network, forwarded ports, explicit routing directives, etc., will be sent to a specified IP. That traffic will all be completely bypass the user's firewall. This can be very convenient if you don't want to have to forward everything in the kitchen sink to a specific machine, but the host will be completely unprotected. Basically, the DMZ host could be the public face of your LAN as if the router wasn't there. Cheers and thanks for the show. So I guess I wasn't clear on that. That's exactly what the listener that we were responding to wanted. We talked about bridge mode and we talked about the DMZ mode. Essentially, both of those give your the idea is you have your internet provider's router and then you have another router inside that. And the DMZ host mode or the bridge mode basically gives your router a public IP address. That's what we were going for. Yes, that's dangerous. Don't do that unless there's another device behind it, because that's called stupid.
For lack of a better term, yes.
Stupid is as
called
stupid does, my mama always said.
So Henrik, thank you very much for correcting that. If somebody out there, I mean, you're a smart guy and you didn't get that. So if somebody else who's not as smart as you didn't get that, I could be on the hook for major damages. Don't do bridged mode or DMZ mode unless you have another hardware device. Don't count on software between that and your network. Yes, bad things will happen. Not can happen, will happen.
Or maybe have already happened and you just don't know it yet.
There you go. Yeah, no.
You know, like the Lizard Squad, you know, they're kind of a poor man's Anonymous from, you know, all the stuff I've read. That's how they mount their DDoS attacks, is through compromised home routers. So, or at least that was the main place they were getting them from. All of, you know, again, what security stuff I've read said that. So again, if you have something like that, hopefully you've changed your default password. Hopefully you've changed, you know, maybe your default username and disabled WAN or internet side management. If not, pause it and go do that now.
Right now. Yeah. I've probably told this story before sometime in the last 181 episodes, but I'm going to do it anyway. I had a friend, older guy, late 60s, I'm going to guess. This was several years ago. He was still running Windows 95, and that's back when a lot of people were still running Windows 95, but XP was the dominant platform. And we got to talking about viruses and such, and he said, you know, I have never had an antivirus, and I've never had a virus. And I said, well, if you've never had an antivirus, how do you know you've never had a virus? And he said, well, you know, nobody's ever told me, hey, you're sending me bad files. And I was like, yeah, that's not how you know. I said, if you're running a Windows 95 machine without a firewall, you have a virus. I feel 100% confident in telling you that you have many viruses, not one. You have many viruses, even if you're just connecting through a dial-up modem. But certainly if you have a broadband connection, you, my friend, are what you call infected. So I gave him a copy of AVG, the free version. I no longer believe in AVG, but I did back then. They were actually a good product at one time. And I had him take it home, and ironically, not surprisingly, actually, so actually absolutely non-ironically, my web server, my mail server, and the mail server I ran for the church that we both went to, the spam that it was started filtering out dropped dramatically, like 40%. and I didn't put the two together at the time. And then he came back to me later, and he said, you know, I put that thing that you gave me on my computer, and it found 4,000 viruses. And I said, now I understand the problem. So,
well, wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you don't believe in AVG anymore?
No, I no longer do. They are now more bloatware than they need to be.
So what do you use on your Windows machines?
I run the much maligned Microsoft Defender.
Oh, you're one of those people.
I am.
See, personally, on my wife's and my kids' computers that are Windows, they are all running Bitdefender.
Bitdefender?
Yep, I was a Defender reseller, so I figured if I'm going to sell it, I might as well run it. And I had it installed on. I bought a family license and installed it on every device that my family owns, including the tablets and phones.
So the Microsoft, it used to be Security Essentials, now it's Defender, is not good at zero-day, at deflecting zero-day viruses. That has been established over time. But many people aren't good at zero-day. The only way you find a zero-day, which means it's never been known before, is to use a heuristic analysis. You analyze behavior of something and say, this looks virus-like. That will, every time it's tried, result in false positives. Bitdefender or Microsoft Defender Security Essentials don't use a heuristic analysis. They depend on pattern matching. So there's almost never a false positive, meaning it stays out of the user's way. So I'm willing to take the chance that, lightning might strike me on a zero-day scenario, and be able to use my machine on a regular basis, rather than employ something like AVG or any Panda, and these really good ones that are wrong even once, and get in my way. I don't want antivirus stuff to get in my way. So that's the reason I use the built-in stuff. It stays out of the way, it doesn't hamper performance, and it just works.
And it's a pretty good system. Granted, I will still stand up and scream Bitdefender, but I do like the clean and out of the way of Security Essentials now Defender.
Right.
So as long as you are a knowledgeable user, I will agree with you.
Yeah, take basic. It's like you put on gloves before you give somebody a shot, right? Basic protocols will keep you safe, and Security Essentials is one of those basic protocols. And not clicking a link that comes to you in an email is another basic protocol. Again, we use Gmail. Gmail is because mail is the primary way that viruses propagate, and Gmail runs really good servers with heuristic analysis on their side. So very rarely does anything come through that's even remotely suspicious via email. I know not to click on random things on the web, and I've trained my kids, if in doubt, don't, and ask Dad. So we haven't had a problem. And so I don't see any reason I should use the things that do get in the way when I don't have a problem. Of course, you could say, like my friend, if you don't have a virus detector that can detect 0 days, how do you know you don't have a problem? Well, they are updated pretty regularly.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about Microsoft is they do update that thing pretty frequently. Is it still based off their what is that, the corporate version of their antivirus? What is the name of that thing? Forefront?
I don't remember.
Don't get me started on Forefront. We have, oh my gosh, I guess I love Forefront. It keeps me in a job, so it keeps me busy at my job. So yay, Forefront, way to be there, represent Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
so that's why I don't want to run something that I'm going to have to hire somebody to fix.
I was saying, I knew there for a long time it was based off of that stuff, so I was curious to see if it was still. I didn't know if it still was or if they've moved on to a different engine or. I'm a little out of that game.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't recall. I remember they purchased Giant, and I don't know that they've ever equaled the level of excellence that Giant had before they purchased them. So.
All right, moving on. This is not the antivirus show. That comes later.
Okay, sorry.
So we'll get to some news of the week a bit later. We're going to jump in now to firewalls, building your own firewall, managing your own firewall. Should you dump the little blue box that you got from Best Buy? Spoiler, yes. And if so, what are some of the options out there, and what's good for the advanced user and what's good for the novice? And all of these, unsurprisingly, run on some version of Unix. Linux, FreeBSD or something like that. And if you don't know anything about anything, and before you dive into building your own firewall, you want to get some Linux learning on, I'd like to recommend our friends over at the linuxacademy.com. You can go there and use their step-by-step video courses that are designed to take you from being a beginner to a certified professional. They do this via now several hundred training videos that are growing every day. That are not just videos. They have the PDF study guides that go along with it. They have the quizzes that go along with those. They have the practice exams once you're ready to see if you're ready to go out in the big wide world. They have my favorite feature, the lab environment, where you get up to four simultaneous virtual servers running in the cloud on the internet in a protected way. So you can actually get experience with a client server architecture. You get to do what you're seeing, right? The videos show you. The study guides let you read and digest, and the lab lets you do and break stuff. And I'm a break stuff guy. I can memorize what I read, and I can emulate what I watch, but I never learn until I break stuff. So for me, the lab is the most important thing. Some people out there, some of you guys could just read it and got it. All right, I'm good. So for you, don't even look at the videos. Just read the study guides and go. Some of you guys are super visual. You can just watch it and you've got it. I'm not one of those guys. I need to do stuff. So the lab gives you that. You can run you've got 8 different distributions to choose from. You have 4 of them running simultaneously using real internet protocols in a safe environment. So if you blow something up, you just hit the restart button and you start all over again. It's running in Amazon's web cloud. It's lightning fast and highly reliable. They're also adding new features that are non-Linux, right? They've got Amazon Web stuff, by the way. They're running their stuff on Amazon Web Servers. They know something about it. They have courses on that, and they have a new course that they added recently, Ruby on Linux. So the Ruby programming language on Linux. So you get to learn a little bit about Linux. You get to learn a little bit about Ruby, and at the end you end up with a program, a tool that you wrote yourself that you can use. So all sorts of great stuff going on, independently certified as high-quality content. And another neat feature that they added just recently is learning plans. You tell Linux Academy when you're available and how many hours a week you want to spend doing something, and they'll write a syllabus for you, complete with daily emails saying, hey, today you need to watch these videos, you need to take these tests, you need to do these labs to be on track with what you said you want to do. And I think that's amazing. You just won't get that anywhere else for such a reasonable price. And what is that reasonable price? How does $25 a month strike you? Pretty hard. $25 a month is their highest price, and that's a pittance, right? If you want to buy 3 months, so you try a month, you test it. You on my word, on faith in that I've built up over 181 episodes, that you trust me to not steer you wrong. You invest $25. You look around for a month.
$25.
You spend your time, you look and see, and at the end of that, you're going to want to buy more. You just are. So then you can go with bigger chunks. Like anything else, the more you buy, the less expensive it is. If you buy a quarter, which is 3 months, that's $65 as opposed to $75. So that's a $10 discount. If you buy annually, it's $215 for the years, which breaks down to just under $18 a month. So you get a significant discount there. And if you go to their use the link linuxacademy.com/everydaylinux, there will be special pricing there, so you won't even pay that much. But even if you pay their full rate of $25 month to month, it's still going to be worth it. So linuxacademy.com, let them know that we sent you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was just I just logged in to my Linux. I pay for this. You should too. If you know me, you would stop what you're doing now and sign up. That's how the fact that I pay for it says. They have several we've never even talked about before. But if you are somebody who likes to automate stuff because you don't want to be doing the same tedious task over and over in the Linux world, there's a software called Puppet, and they have a cert prep course for Puppet. We've talked about the Red Hat Enterprise 7. They have things for Docker. Docker is super big in the virtualization world now, and they've had that course out since December. So there's tons of things out there. You can learn Linux here, but you can learn so much more. It's just like, you know, if you're hired as a Linux admin, you're not only going to be doing Linux stuff. You're going to be, you know, the software that runs on Linux. And so this class isn't just for Linux, but this is your one-stop shop for technical certification. I mean, there's no Windows courses here, but, you know, I don't know, maybe they'll launch Windows Academy before too long. But if you're going to be in the back room type thing, linuxacademy.com is a great place to go, and you can't find this quality for this price anywhere else.
All right. Enough said about that. Now let's move on to the burn-in wall of fire. I wonder if people even know what a firewall is. It's such a regularly used word. Do you even know what it is? So
I would guess probably not.
In a building, every depends on the regulations of where you are, but every so many feet, or with it may be how many people are expected to occupy it, you have to have a firewall. That's an extra thick wall that it takes fire a long time to burn through. So let's say your typical 2 sheets of sheetrock with a steel partition in between or steel stud in between them takes 15 minutes for fire to burn through. That sounds about right to me. A firewall might be required based on the code of where you live to take 45 minutes to go through, or an hour and 45. Depends on where it is and what it is. So
and it also depends on the level. You know,
right.
there's different ratings of firewalls.
Yep.
So
depending on what it's surrounding. Some of the work I did as I was, you know, around buildings when they were first going up for my home business, like around an elevator, that firewall has to be. I mean, that was super. It was what, 4 inches thick, 5 inches thick, something like that, of just wall material, and all the seams had to be painted with a special fire retardant paint. So. Yeah. It would take extra long to go through that.
So the idea of a firewall is not to stop a fire, but to let you get out, right? And so in a car, every car has a firewall between the engine and the passenger compartment that requires X amount of time for a fire to get through. So when we started building perimeter protection around our devices, so we started out with routers and bridges that were just wide open to the world, and you know, it's like open windows and doors. So somebody decided, you know what? We should probably protect some of this stuff. Not everybody on the internet's a nice guy. Did you know that? It's true. Not everybody on the internet is a nice guy. So the concept of the internet firewall came about. And the idea of an internet firewall is to slow things down. A firewall is not guaranteed protection. It just slows the people down. Depending on how good they are, it may not slow them down for long. So everything we've talked about here, that we're about to talk about, will not stand against, you know, a Russian hacker who's really determined at what he does. It's just not going to happen. Boris can get through your Boris box, but the idea is to make it hard for them, not be a soft target. So I want to set the expectation right here. You are not going to be perfectly safe behind any of these things that we talk about, but you will be much safer than you would be without it.
And I've just got to interject with a construction story here, because in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter what you're using if you don't configure it correctly.
Amen.
I was working a temporary agency doing some construction because I have a background in that, and they had just built this firewall, and it was like 2 inches thick, specially rated material, blah blah blah, all of that. They got it signed off that yes, this meets code. And then what do? They cut a 2 by 2 foot square right smack in the middle of it to run conduit and cable through. And I'm like, am I the only one who sees a problem with the fact that a firewall has a hole in it? Well, you have to run conduit, but no, they didn't like run conduit, you know, that was also rated. It was a hole that they ran cable through, and I'm like, dear Lord. And so, yes, they had a firewall, but they did not configure the opening through their firewall correctly. So you can have the ultimate Boris box that he came out of retirement and built one for yourself, but then if you just set everything to bypass mode, you're wasting what it can do.
Right.
So again, just because you say, oh, they talked about Untangled on Everyday Linux, I'm running Untangled, therefore I'm secure. Well, I mean, you run Untangled, great, but did you add any of the modules? If you added them, did you turn them on? So
And did you configure them?
Yeah, it's not just installation; it's also configuration. So, okay, I just had to I just had to share that. Back to you, Mark.
That's a good story.
Right.
That was a good story.
And like any wall, nothing gets through if you don't put a hole in it first, right? Most of the holes we have in our walls are called doors or doorways, right? So if you configure your firewall using no filters, no blocks, no allowances, nothing gets through. So at that point, you might as well have just unplugged your Ethernet connection. The problem comes, you've got to let stuff through. You've got to let web traffic through, because that's probably why you want a router. You've got to let certain video game traffic through. You've got to let media server traffic through. So every time you do that, you're punching a hole in that firewall. You're making it less secure. Understand that. There's no such thing as network security. You are either secure or you are networked.
Yeah, there's no
Correct.
such thing of the both.
All right. Now, having said all of that, let's look at what this all started from some listener feedback, and also Chris is looking to move on to something else. Monowall is no more, and he's looking to see if he wants to move on to something else. So I want to break these down sort of in most turnkey to least turnkey.
Okay.
So I think one of the best places to start in terms of most turnkey is Untangle, because it's one of the drop-dead easiest things to use I have ever seen. And so I've used it, Chris has used it, Seth went ahead and decided he was going to own that one this week, and he installed it and has been playing with it. So Seth, take it away about Untangle.
All right. Well, yes, I've been just relying on my generic. Now, I didn't buy the generic blue box. I bought an off-brand. I paid some extra money to get some features, but
So it's a black box.
yeah,
Great.
actually it's white.
Okay.
So, so that's what I've been running for all the years I've had it. But I thought, okay, I'm gonna stick a box. I'm gonna take one of my old computers and I'm going to install this on it. And so I downloaded Untangled. I used I took the ISO and I burned it to a USB. We've gone over all that before. And I booted my computer off that USB and went to install. I'll tell on myself here, I just picked a computer off my SAC at random, and I opened it up and I go, yep, that has a hard drive in it. It's good to go. But what I didn't look is the hard drive connected and powered on? And so whenever it went to format the disk, I did not realize, but I formatted the USB key that I had inserted in there, and so all of a sudden my installation wasn't working. And then whenever I take that drive out, I'm looking at a blank USB stick, so I had to reburn the ISO.
I'm laughing because I've done that.
Yep, I've done it too.
I open up the case and go, oh, there's the problem. That SATA cable isn't connected. Oh, the power's not connected either. So I did that, reburned the USB, got it on there. Now, I will say one of the areas of improvement since the last time I installed Untangled is there are, I bought a second NIC card this week to put in there, and I just had one plugged in because I thought, it would be easier. But now I don't have to refresh or anything. It will auto-sense your connection, and it was just as simple as whichever one of these is connected, drag it to the top, and the system switched it automatically to external. So once I had my external connection set, I then plugged in the other one that went to my wireless router, and my internet started working again throughout the whole house. So that used to be kind of it was kind of an ordeal to, okay, which NIC do I have? Is this the internal? Is this the external? So they have made that super simple to figure out which cable is going into which NIC on your machine, and you get that going. So I got it to install. I chose my good super secure password, For Untangled, you have to register with Untangled's site to download software. So I chose a different password, super secure password for that, and then I started downloading the modules. Now, one thing I don't like is now there is no indication of which ones are free and which ones are paid. All the paid ones have a 2-week free trial, and some of them, like there's the Web Filter and the Web Filter Lite. I correctly deduced that the Lite is the free version, but then there's other things that aren't, and so I had to go online and look to see which ones were free and which ones were paid.
Yeah, you used to have to go to 2 different sections in the interface, the paid interface
Right.
and the free interface.
Yeah, and there's not quite as many. I don't remember there being. I remember there being more choices. So they've kind of simplified some of their choices before, and there aren't as many options as there was. One thing I am a little bummed about, the packet shaping. There really isn't any kind of packet shaping that's free.
That's
you have
true.
to go. You have to go paid. I don't like that it's from 1 to 10 devices is one price, and then 11 up to like 50. If you have a family of 3 or 4, you probably have 10 internet work connected devices. And I'm not even talking about your Nest thermostat and each light bulb that has a NIC on it. But, it's easy to get 10 devices with even just one person, much less 2 or 3 or 4. So the price is there. And plus, I think their prices on their paid things, they aren't for the home user. They're for an organization that has a little bit more money. Their paid versions, I think, are a little too expensive for especially our audience to run the paid versions at their house. But it was super simple to set up. I didn't have to go in, and I just said pick, be DHCP from the ISP, and then you can be a router to my network, and then I didn't have to reconfigure my wireless router to get to it. It automatically goes through, and then I have the security, and turned on everything, and it's just a matter of going in and playing with the settings to tailor it to what you want. But it is super simple to set up, super simple to download. Super simple to install. It's really, just like I say, you want to make sure you have a hard drive plugged into the computer. You install Untangled on.
One of my favorite things about Untangled is their visual interface. They spent some time on that. So when you fire it up, you're looking at a rack, just like you would if you were standing in a server room. Like there's rails on the side with screw holes. And then when you add that packet shaper, it grabs a device and screws it into the rack, and then there's a power button where you turn it on. So things are very clear and very logical, and the thing at the top takes precedence over the things below it. So it's very easy to see what path your data is going through, and you can swap things around if you need to. So it's really simple for anybody who's done anything, even from building a stereo component system at your house. Anytime anybody who's had any experience with plugging in different devices can look at this and go, "Oh, I get this. I understand what they're doing here."
It's easier than setting up your wireless router. I totally believe that, because, in my experience, those one push buttons to automatically configure, they have never worked for me, not one time ever. This is easier than configuring your wireless router that you bought.
And if you're in an enterprise environment, the reporting is fantabulous.
Yep, it's one of the reasons that my old school district is still running it. The ability, because they have it tied into their Active Directory, so they can actually pull a report on a independent person because of the version that they have and the way I had it set up. So if they want to find out what Johnny's been searching for the last month, they can load up his, do a reporting just on him, get his traffic usage, his internet history, everything. So
now that you mentioned, Chris, that's a paid module.
Very expensive, actually.
Yeah,
it's very expensive, but the school wanted it, and they ended up getting it. The other thing that I will definitely say is they are very helpful for customer service on the paid version. I know when I had issues getting some of the configurations to work, I called their tech support line. It was Okay, they first would say it's this information is listed here in the wiki for your information for later, but let me see what's going on. Can you allow me to have a remote view of your server for temporary, and I'll help you configure it right now. So you really can't ask for much more than that.
Now, because it has all the whiz-bang GUI and all that, it's also one of the heaviest ones in our list.
Yeah.
It's going to require probably a 2 gig Pentium for your regular home user.
I would say almost a dual core, personally.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'd leave it on a single core.
Well, I did a single core, and I have like 4 gigs of RAM, and so it gave me a little thing, and it said your memory was great, your processor was okay. So, but again, at most, there's going to be 2 people doing things, and really, with the bandwidth I have, I could have probably found the P3, and it would have worked okay. Right. So, but yeah, I would say this would be your definitely starter firewall. Anybody, and then you can go in and kind of play with some of the features, and then maybe you can move on to another one if you wanted to. Like, I'm probably going to look at some of the others just simply because one of the things I was wanting to see was like how much bandwidth and then the ability to do some QoS type stuff. There's a little bit, but it's not much in the free versions of Untangled appliances.
All right, let's move on now to the next one on their list, ClearOS, which, if memory serves, used to be called the Clark Connect server, and it is not just a UTM. It's not just a firewall. UTM, again, I said Unified Threat Management. So there's firewall, there's antivirus, there's anti-malware, Unified Threat Management. That's what that is. That's what these devices are. ClearOS is also a print server, is also a mail server, is also
it's a super
Active
server.
Directory. It does anything you want it to do, and does it really well, and is, again, my experience is a little old with it. Chris, maybe you have more recent experience. It is like one step below Untangle in terms of graphical, beautiful, easy-to-useness.
Yeah, it's a little bit less, but as far as functionality-wise, it is just as powerful, if not more. Things where you can get in trouble by using it, because it has so many things that interconnect. I tried using it a couple of times. I haven't looked at it recently. It just kind of, for me, it was one of those moments of, oh, maybe I shouldn't be playing with this yet because I don't know what I'm doing. When I was trying to put it into at the school, and it was not something I wanted to deal with at the time for my house. So, but yeah, it's super feature rich. I'm trying to find a good picture of it.
Yeah. And it's a web-based. It's not the fancy GUI Java thing that Untangle has. It's web-based, but they're nice. They're clear. They're understandable for the non-super tech. But it requires a bigger, heavier box. It is a server, and you need to think of it as a server. And I never really liked using these all-in-one devices. I want my firewall off separate from everything else. Because if you've got your Samba server and your mail server on the same box, I don't trust that. The ClearOS guys say it's okay. Other people do the same thing. I don't trust it. But what ClearOS is good about is you can have different boxes running the same OS doing different things. So you have ClearOS over here configured as a firewall, over here configured as a web server, over here configured as a mail server, and you've got one interface to learn and to understand. So that's the way I would use it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where if you need, I would say it'd be great for a small business. If you did want to spend the money for Untangle, this would be the next step down from Untangle for as far as features and usability. This would be I would say it's way overkill for a house, more suitable for a home, a small business of less than 100 people, I would say.
All right.
Does it have a like Untangle? And I forgot to mention this, has a one NIC option configuration where if you have a box and you don't have a second NIC, you can just have one, and it can kind of virtually be the in and the out at the same time. Does ClearOS have that capability?
I'm going to
just
go out on a
curious.
limb here and say everything that we're talking about tonight can do that. The single NIC transparent proxy is a pretty standard feature.
Okay, and yeah, but and again, that's a good thing that somebody listening to us might not know off the top of their head.
It is
they're
inherently less secure, but it
yes,
will work.
that's a good point to make as well. And that was why I spent the money for a second NIC.
And
Yeah.
by money, you're talking $18. You know.
Yeah, 12 actually.
Yeah.
It was. So yeah, it was not a lot of money.
I would say no matter what you're doing, if you're setting up one of these devices or one of these unified threat management systems, do separate NICs or even 3 NICs, just so you have the versatility of a external only card, an internal only card, and then if you wanted the third card for your DMZ.
And NIC, in case you don't know, network interface card.
Yep.
NIC.
Yeah, don't say NIC card, you'll drive Mark crazy.
Yes. Do you go to the ATM machine and put your PIN number in? Okay, so next, going from GUIness down, I'm going to say probably Sophos is the next in the list.
Yep. I would say too. Have you guys played with Sophos recently?
I played with its grandfather, Astaro, way back. So I'm out of the loop on this one.
No,
Well,
it is
not
the
really.
same. It's the same whether you are a business or a home user. If you're a home user, it's free. If you're a business, it costs money. So I think there's probably tons of stuff it can do, but I have not played with it.
The old Astaro logo, by the way, was an example of me of how not to stylize a font because it looked just like the word bastard.
All righty then.
Yes, I will agree with you on that.
So
one.
I'm walking around the conference floor and I see this 17-foot graphic sign that says "Bastard Appliances." What? It got my attention though.
It got your attention. Yeah. I haven't played with it since Sophos bought it out. I know when it was still Astaro, it was a true, tried and true unified threat management system. I haven't played with it since Sophos got it, and I would guess that it's still just as good. I don't know. I would have to play with it to have anything more on it, but I would say don't spend a lot of time here unless you're willing to. From what I remember, the Astaro one was hard to figure your way through it.
Okay, I've tried to find one of their old logos because that's where my brain is right now. So they had this like 3 octagon thing that looked like a B, and then Astaro, and the O was stylized so that it looked like a D. And I swear to you that it looked exactly like the word bastard.
Internet time machine.
I'm trying to find one that I can paste in the chat room so that you'll all see what I'm talking about. This is one where after they'd already started modifying it. In the chat room, you'll see it. In the show notes.
It really does. Wow.
Yeah, in the early days, it really looked just like the word bastard. And I said that to the salesman. I was like, "What the heck are you thinking by having this here at this education conference?" But anyway, so Sophos is good. We don't have a lot of experience with it, so we can't give you an in-depth rundown. Other than everybody who uses it likes it, and it's one of those the genie is all in one box. So
Yep.
You got to be a little more careful about how you source your hardware.
Well, and you also have to make sure that you're not turning things on that you don't want on. That's the other thing with any of these unified threat managements that have lots of stuff besides security and firewall-y stuff. When you start adding PRIT server and file server on them, if you don't need those things turned on, make sure you don't have them on.
Right.
Yeah, that's like cutting a hole in this perfectly good wall and then wondering later how a fire jumped through it.
Yeah.
So I had a firewall. Of course, I cut out a big 8-foot by 8-foot section.
Didn't put an email
but it was
server
a
in there.
firewall. Doggone it.
Okay, so next up, I'm gonna go with probably OpenSense and maybe Smooth Wall, Mono Wall. Which one do you guys want to jump on? They're probably all even in the GUIness.
Yeah, well, especially since if you were for everyone's knowledge here, the original was MonoWall, and then SmoothWall broke off of that, and then off of MonoWall we also have pfSense that broke off of MonoWall, and OpenSense is now the grandchild of MonoWall via pfSense. So that's kind of how this is breaking out, especially now that MonoWall is officially dead. According to their own website, there's no longer going to be any more MonoWall goodness for anybody. So if you're running MonoWall, you'll probably be okay, but maybe the next time you go to replace it, look for some of the thing that we've covered today.
So the children of MonoWall that I know well is SmoothWall. SmoothWall is great. It's modular. It's web. It's not like, again, Untangle just takes the cake in terms of gooiness. It's a web interface, but you plug in different modules, and it's, I believe, based on Perl, if I remember correctly, or maybe have updated since then. So you just drop in code, or you tell it, go get this code, and it goes and gets it. It's a very good firewall. It has a built-in content filter. There are other content filters that you can add on to it. We haven't talked about this before, but all the things that we've mentioned before have web content filters. But SmoothWall is the one that I think is the best. There have been other things based off of it. Dan, a guy named Dan, wrote something called Dan's Guardian. It's the first thing that scanned web content, right? It wasn't just a URL blocker. It didn't just look for the word Playboy in the address. It scanned the page and looked for various references to nudity or, whatever you had it set for, and it was a weighted thing. So if the word breast was there, that was -5 points. If the word cancer was there, that was +6 points. So you could look at a breast cancer website, but if the word breast was there minus the word, and the word cancer wasn't, and the word nude was there, that's -6 points, and anything that hits -10 or below is blocked. So it was the first smart firewall. The SmoothWall community hired Dan, and he now writes their tool called Smooth Guardian. So it's what I think is the best content filter out there. Others are good. That one I think is better. But again, that's my review of SmoothWall. It's good. It's solid. It works. It runs on a small box. I ran it on a old first gen Pentium, running 8 gigs of RAM. 8 megs of RAM. Megs of RAM. But that was a while back. It's I'm sure it has been upgraded since then. IPCOP is an offshoot of that one that I've also used. So that's my review of SmoothWall. It's good. It's solid. It's been around a long time. And Chris is a pfSense user.
Yeah, though I will say something about SmoothWall. I had the worst time trying to get, when I was going between pfSense and SmoothWall and MonoWall, trying to figure out which one was going to be my router software of choice. I could not get Steam to work through SmoothWall or MonoWall. No matter what I did, it just would not. It would not reach through.
It's too secure.
It was just, it would not let me loosen the reins enough to allow Steam to make its connections out. Same thing with my Wii and my PlayStation.
And you weren't willing to turn on UPnP and let it happen.
Well, I did even.
Oh, really?
But it was still so tight that it wouldn't let those packets through. So it would let me be online with Steam and all my other clients. So that's why I ended up in pfSense, just for everyone's knowledge. But I've been pfSense now for almost 8 years, 9 years, something like that.
Which means that your SmoothWall experience is dated as well.
Very.
So
very
let's be honest there.
And yeah, it may be a totally different story now. But that's why I'm wondering if it's time for me to start, widening my gaze and look at some of the other options. But I'll go down pfSense road for a little bit. The install for pfSense is a pain. It's end cursors, so it's all text-driven. You have to know which card is the correct card for your red interface or your green interface. And for those who don't know, red is your external card and green is your internal card. But in the newer versions, once you get it installed, because after you pick those, it does everything else for you. You don't have to do anything else for the base level. But once you get into the dashboard, that's when that's where people start getting a little, hard to figure out where everything is, because it's not labeled as clearly as I think it should be. But they do have large lists of packages, which would be plugins like Untangled has. I think currently.
Are you running the current version of pfSense?
I am.
Okay.
I am running the most current version, and they just recently changed their package list to actually be able to sort things by a category. Before, you had a long laundry list of things that were alphabetized. So when you wanted to get down to, say, installing Squid for your proxy, you had to actually go all the way down to find Squid in the list, and it was a daunting list to get through. They also cover different versions of a lot of different software. So if you want Squid, there's like six different things that say Squid in it, because there's Squid 2, they have Squid 2 or Squid 3, and then they have the different levels that are different things that plug into those versions of Squid. So Squid's Guardian, or anyway, there's a lot of things here and a lot of tools that you may not ever need. So definitely it's a lot of times where you're going to look at the package and go, okay, that looks like something I want. Go read about it before you install it.
And just by the way, all of these are administered through a web browser. Even Untangle, even if you're working on the machine, right? You've got it plugged into a big 2 gig processor running multiple cores, and you plug in and you've got a monitor and a keyboard. You're still going to look at a web interface to do it. So all of these things, but when we get to this point down from pfSense and down, we're looking at a web page that is a plain old-fashioned HTML table with a select box and a drop-down menu. We've abandoned pretty at this point.
Yeah, we're very much beyond pretty at this point.
But that also means you can run these things on a 386. You can run them on a Pi. You can run them on anything you've got laying around.
Anything below pfSense, I would say you'd be all right. I would still not run this pfSense on a Pi or anything of that level, just because of the multi-threads that it generates doing its thing. Let's see. But as far as your built-in stuff, they have things built in for like traffic shaping. If you want to have timeout schedules, those are all built in. They're not add-in packages. They're standard. You just have to turn them on. One of the new things that they added that was really nice is a watchdog service. So if something, say, goes down in the middle of the night, like, say, Squid decides that, oh, I'm done, I had an error, the watchdog service will automatically restart it.
Squid, by the way, is the caching proxy. Squid caches everything you do so that the next time you want to do that same thing, it doesn't have to go out to the internet for you.
Yeah, it's a transparent proxy. At least that's how normally it's set up.
Right.
No matter what they call the package, most of the time it's Squid on its underpinning. Even the Untangle GUI prettiness, you're still dealing with Squid underneath. So,
because what you do is you go out to the internet, you cache it locally, you examine the data locally, decide what to do with it, and then hand it off to the user or block it from the user.
Right. And also, the nice thing about any form of bandwidth capturing, like with Squid, is that also means if, say, you have it configured to cache your antivirus updates or your Windows updates, you only have to download them once, and all of your devices get them.
Which means you got to make sure you've got storage on the machine, a fair amount of it.
Well,
but in this world where an SD card can be 16 gigs, pretty easily.
Or bigger.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Right now, like, I have my stuff I have pretty much everything going through the Squid proxy and being cached, and I'm still, because I had it terminating after a couple of days and it has to re-download it then. I have the whole system sitting on a 250 gig hard drive, and I'm barely even using it.
Yeah.
I think I'm at 35%, and that includes all the caching. So all the YouTube my kids watch, the first time they hit it, it's now it's a network draw. The second time they hit it, the first time they hit it, it's ISP draw. The second time they hit the same video, it's local. It never actually makes it back out to the internet.
And kids are known to watch the same video over and over. I don't know if you've noticed that. But,
hence the reason it's turned on. Makes a big difference. I was really shocked when I turned it on in my house to see how much traffic is being captured and reused versus refetched. Only a nice thing to have turned on. But again, it's one of those things like I don't have any traffic shaping going on anymore because the last time I went through this to try to set it up, I blew up my network.
So we've mentioned traffic shaping several times. Let's talk about what that is. Traffic shaping is I want YouTube bandwidth to have X amount. I want Netflix to have X plus 5. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want web traffic to have X minus 5. So you get to say that it's setting priority, right? In some systems, it is literally defining a range of bandwidth.
Right.
Where you say YouTube gets 56K of bandwidth. And so it just can't ever go beyond that. But most of them now, that's sort of the old way to do it. Most of the things now, you set priority. So 10 is the highest. This one gets 10. It gets premium level. Everything goes behind that. So if you're running, voice over IP, it gets 10, right? Email, you put it at 1. It gets very little because it doesn't matter if your email gets there on the first try or the 50th try. It's still going to get there, and it'll be just fine. Netflix, you want way up there because if you drop a Netflix packet, you notice it. So that's what when we talk about traffic shaping, that's what that is.
And everything has some form of traffic shaping. Even if it's all the way down at the lowest level, like with a DDWRT, there's traffic shaping built into that. Or the cheap Linksys Blue Box, or all the way up to the super powerful Untangle box. You have traffic shaping in all of them. The difference is how well the traffic is shaped and how much doesn't fall into bleed over. Because I noticed that if you right now, I don't have any, and nobody really feels any differences. But if I go to shape it. I'm not going to do it during the show, but if I go to shape it and I misconfigure it, I've actually almost locked myself out of my own server because I traffic shaped the wrong way, and yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah, bad things.
Bad things will happen if you're not careful. The other thing that I'll bring up about pfSense is that, like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, they do have it's a freemium plan, so you are. The free version and the paid version are the exact same model. There's nothing different between the two as far as what comes on the disc. But if you're what they call a gold member, you get online support. So somebody, just like with Untangle, somebody will answer your phone call or your email and actually give you the answer or help you configure it correctly for your place. And I know I'm on the fence about doing the gold subscription because it's not very expensive. It's only $99 a year.
Yeah, and if you get good value out of that, it's worth it.
Well, and most of the time, once you get yourself set up, so the first year you use that as a configuring year, and once you're set up, you could probably cancel your gold subscription and never touch your pfSense box again.
Right. So I'm going to move on in the sense of, for the sake of time, and I'm going to lump DDWRT, Tomato, OpenWRT all into one bucket. Okay,
yeah, that's fair.
So these are designed to replace the firmware on existing router devices. So they're not designed to stick in a machine with a hard drive, and you can do that with all of these, but that's not what their purpose is. So the one I'm running right now is DDWRT. It came on my Buffalo router. and I've updated it a couple of times since then. And it is limited, right? So now you're running on this tiny processor. You're running on an ARM processor similar to what's in your phone, running at less than a gigahertz for certain, and you have a few megs of RAM, not even in the gig range of memory. So you would think that it's pretty limited at this point, but it's not. The thing is, it doesn't take much to do most of this stuff. This all starts with what's called stateful packet inspection. So everything that comes in, every bit of data is wrapped up into an internet packet. And these things grab that packet, open it up, look at it, make a decision as to what to do with it. Do I reject it? Do I send it on? And if I do send it on, where do I send it? And even the cheapest stuff can do this 1,000,000 times a second. So you can get several megabits of bandwidth through the cheapest hardware. So that's why I talk about the blue box. You go buy a Linksys router, that is running a chip the size of a penny. That's got like 4 volts running through it, and it's running it's not in gigahertz. You don't measure this clock speed in gigahertz. You measure it in megahertz, and in the range of like 70 megahertz. I mean, it is really slow. But it can do all this, and it can do it just fine. So the DDWRT lets you, because you're running on a device that doesn't have storage, you can pop in a USB drive or identify a box on your network as your caching. So you can still have a Squid cache. It just offloads that to another device. You can still have, you can on mine, for example, I've got a hard drive plugged into it, and that hard drive is now accessible through my whole LAN. So it has shared the contents of that hard drive. If I wanted to, I could share it over the WAN. I don't. I don't trust that. I use, Dropbox and other services that focus on that to do that sort of thing. But you could set up your own Dropbox using one of these devices. And Tomato is like unto it. It's very similar. OpenWRT is even a more minimalist alternative to the DDWRT. So it's designed to go again on these other devices, or they have spins for like Pis. That's a thing out there that's pretty big right now. Taking these small system on a chip things that you can pick up for $35 and building your own. Why would you want to do that? Because there's probably not any Chinese spyware on it. If you do that, probably. All of these things are open. All of them are built on open source or are completely open source. So Untangle, for example, guards their fancy stuff, but all the stuff it runs on is open source. And if you're a geek, or you know a geek, or you want to hire a geek for a few hours to go through the code and make sure there's no Chinese spyware, you can do that. You have that option if you're a tinfoil hat guy. So I'm running DDWRT, like it a lot. I have run Smoothwall, liked it a lot. Chris is a big fan of pfSense. We all love Untangle. ClearOS we like, but we think it's overkill. Sophos we've heard good things about.
But I hate the company.
Yeah. So that's pretty much our rundown of the most common ones out there right now. So it all depends on what you want to do. If you've got a big box to throw at it and you want things dirt simple, Untangle's the way to go. If you've got another box that you bought and you're not sure you trust it, DDWRT or Tomato is the way to go. Yeah. If you're somewhere in between, you've got a smaller box and you want to roll your own, then something like pfSense or Smoothwall is the way to go.
Yep, I would say that's a good categorizing it. I would definitely say if money is not an option, Untangle is definitely worth every penny. Yeah. You know, the pay, and the nice thing about the way they do their payment scale is you can also add packages a la carte. So if you only want to pay for the I don't remember what their malware package is, but if you only wanted the malware package, you could pay for the malware package and that's it. Or if you only wanted the caching package, you could pay for the caching package. So it's kind of a nice way of doing it.
I ran Untangle in a VM for a year at my school with 700 users behind it as an experiment. I just threw it up there to see what it would do, and it worked so well I didn't take it down. And it wasn't until, we got into the terabits per day of data before that couldn't handle it. And so then I threw it on like a $300 Dell box and it was fine for 1,000 devices and nearly 1,000 users running through a 150 megabit pipe. So it's amazing. You don't need a lot to do most of this stuff.
Yeah. So at the school that I left, we ended up putting Untangle on a way overkill system. When I called to get some support for moving our config files, the guy goes, I was on the phone with him, and he goes, hold on a second, I need to talk to my boss for a minute. And he was remoted in, and I'm like, okay. And so he comes back on the phone, and I could hear his boss in the background. They have this running on what? Because we bought at the time we figured, if we're gonna spend this much money on the product, because they have the education premium package. If they're going to spend that much money on the product, that they might as well spend the good money on good hardware. And so it's sitting on like a Dell Xeon server with like 24 gigs of RAM. I think it's a RAID 5 solid state array of I think it's only 120 gig hard drives, but it's a RAID 5 of them. I mean, way overkill. And they were looking at the server logs, and they're like, "Man, you're never going to touch the capacity on this machine for like probably the next 20
The Pentagon
years."
could run on that machine.
But if you're going to get budget for it, you might as well buy it so you don't have to budget for it ever again.
It's true.
All right, you got to use your budget, or they'll give you a smaller one next year.
The component atoms
right.
will fall apart before you use the capacity of that machine.
I know, but I was like, because they told me, price it for sky's the limit. I'm like, okay.
All right, so there's our look at firewalls and stuff, and we have no time for news. I'm sorry, Seth. We're already into an hour and a half, but this was a geek topic, and I know we're still going to get complaints that we didn't cover it deeply enough. So this is where
let's do this last story because it totally goes with our security thing of the week, and we don't have to cover it much, but
okay,
we got to do it.
So Seth's lead in for this one is, compared to this kid, you're stupid and lazy.
And if my bandwidth was working, I could tell you. But basically, this guy hacked a car with a circuit board. He spent like $15 on electronic components and wired the circuit board up one night, and then he was able to remote into a car. And so compared to this kid, we're all freaking idiots. And I hate Forbes.com.
Yeah, I can't get to the site.
Stupid page that comes up. But so this 14-year-old boy stunned the automotive industry by showing how to hack into connected cars with $15 of simple electronic gear he bought from Radio Shack, which that's the whole reason Radio Shack went bankrupt. The automotive industry didn't want anybody else doing this. Of course, they didn't say what make the vehicle was, but they talk about how this is a pivot moment in the automotive industry.
He could unlock the doors, remote start the engine, set the wipers going, make the car play music from his mobile phone, and then just to pass the points, he flashed the lights of the music to the beat.
Yeah, the 14-year-old boy built his own circuit board overnight.
Wow.
So this is why security is important, and I think we're going to get untangled on all of the vehicles.
Oh, and I love this response. Dr. Anuka Sonuker, lead scientist for the organization, said, for the automakers participating, they realized, the barrier to entry is far lower than we thought. You think?
No, yeah, you don't have to be an engineer. You can be a kid with $14. So
wow, that's
impressive. I wanted to share that story because it's a freaking amazing.
That's a kid who had some time on his hands and just decided to have a good time.
I bet his name is Boris.
I wonder if he has a job working for the automotive industry now.
I'm sure if he doesn't, he will soon.
That, or he's jacking cars left and right and selling them.
Right.
Gone in 60 seconds. Gone in $14.
Yep. So yeah, I
Man,
just wanted to share that
horrible.
one story at least because that's amazing. You know, and again, they didn't give the kid's name, but my hat's off to you, man. You're awesome.
Definitely. I'll give you a salute, man. That's awesome.
All right, and Seth, while you're at it, what have you got this week to lower my productivity so that you look like a better hiring option?
Okay, well, this week I just thought I would take it easy on people and just give you a links to a couple of photos. These are just websites. One is Mashable and one is Locker Gnome. I love the photographer puts Marvel superheroes in not so super situations, and then so it's like the Hulk trying to cut Thor's hair. All of the heroes lined up peeing. It's just kind of funny things. With
Black
action
Widow
figures.
shaving the Hulk's armpit is nice.
Yes.
I don't know. I thought the one where they're cooking over, Ghost Rider's head was pretty impressive.
Right. And then the other one is just 11 places getting bleeped by winter. It just shows how deep the snow has fallen in certain places and what people have done to kind of have some fun with the snow. So from people tunneling out of the front door because the snow snacked overhead to people running and swimming in snow because it's so deep. Just some things to kind of look through and enjoy.
Global warming, man, it's a killer.
It is.
All right.
Swimming through snow, that's impressive.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
So compared to that 14-year-old kid, this guy's brain dead. So, all right, this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can tell me what we left out this week. Did we leave out your favorite product? Did we give a bad review to something you love or a good review to something you hate? Let us know by going to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page, and that'll send us a nicely formatted email that gets priority in my inbox. If you want to send the email yourself, you don't trust me, you can send it to edl@elementop.com. That goes to all three of us. Or if you would like to have your very own voice right along beside mine here on this show, you can do that by calling 559-IAM-OP. That's a free call anywhere in North America. Or just send me an audio file if you're outside North America, and we would love to have you on the show. Did I leave anything out, guys? Anything else?
Live long and prosper.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for being awesome hosts that you are. This was one of the geek-tastic shows that we've had. The last couple of shows have been very light on computer and very heavy on philosophy, so we tried to double up on the computer this week. And you know what? There was even some Linux involved. So go
Quite
us.
a bit.
So, guys, thanks for being the awesome host that you are. Listener, thank you for being the awesome listener that you are. I went and looked at our iTunes page the other day, which was painful and difficult, and I understand why. But the fact is we have one review for the year of 2015 so far. You guys can do better than that. And
We challenge you.
to the jerk who rated us 1 star without a review, you're just a coward, man. I hate it when people do that. If you're going to put 1 star, give me a reason why.
Or else, maybe we'll find out who you are and.
Let's not go that far.
We'll stick a 14-year-old kid on your vehicle.
So I would
wait, my kid's
appreciate
14.
a rating and review in the iTunes store. I would appreciate better a good rating and review. But honestly, I'm not mad at the guy who gave us 1 star. If you think we're worth 1 star, give us 1 star. But tell me why. Tell me what I can do to get up to 1.5. Also, however else you listen to the show via Stitcher or FM, Blast FM or whatever, whatever the rating system is there, we appreciate it if you do that. And best of all, just tell people about it. Let them know that not every show is as geeky as this one, and not every show is as philosophy as some of the last ones we've done. And we kind of do things all around. It's not just Linux; it's life in the context of Linux. So with that said, I'm going to say that ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
Later.
All right. I felt that was a solid show.
Yeah.
All right, live viewers, see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us.